you were talking about the camera, and I was also trying to pull up the OAK-D camera because I thought that would be useful to comment on as well.
Yeah, in fact, since we're at that point, I was saying that at one point I used that, or I bought that camera from China that works the same way as the one that, what is his name? ROS. The ROS is talking about. He's looking at a $1,600 camera from IFM, and that one I saw. I'll just post a link here to it. And let's see, chat. How does this work? Zoom, okay. Oh, I don't have all my windows open, is my problem. So if I say chat, and in that I probably said, here's how it works, here's how I think it should work. And then at the end I said I wouldn't recommend anybody buy it, but anyway, here's the link to that video. And I spent like half an hour or something in that video, pointing it around the room and saying, well, yeah, if you're always at the same distance, it might work, but if you try to get different distances, it's going to be a problem because the way that thing would do auto adjust. But again, this was like, I assume it's a couple of guys in a basement that built this. It's not a big industrial company that's selling them. Because as IFM, they're kind of like SICK or, these kind of companies that, put out real products for people with lots of money, which, I don't have that kind of money and I don't want to spend that kind of money. So it's not something that I want to do. So anyway, I posted that link, and if anybody has time, you can go back and watch that. That was just, my evaluation of something that works like the camera he was looking at.
I looked at it close enough to notice that the price was $1,600. Did you notice the specs on it? Because I just posted the link to the OAK-D camera. And I've forgotten whether this is the new one that they're doing, or 60 frames per second. They have a 4K version of 30 frames per second, 12 megabit. These guys are doing some really interesting stuff. And they've got a really interesting group of people in a community that I think is really, really trying to support, people that are trying to do it on a budget. So I didn't know what the specs were of that $1,600 camera.
They have several pages of specs. It's like a real industrial device, and it'll do like 352 by maybe 400 as the resolution, but it's one that actually, I think it projects out a burst of infrared light, and then it's got some kind of a special CCD sensor that basically measures the distance of each pixel as it comes back. And that's a new technique that came up with several years ago. And I think it works exactly like that camera that I presented. And I don't remember what the frame rate was or whatever, but it looked like a completely usable thing. And the next thing, if you're going to look at a camera, as I said, the first thing is, anytime you look at any kind of sensor, look to see, does it say, will it work outside or not? Because most of the optical stuff can be screwed up by the sun. The sun will wash out your stuff you're looking for. So that's one of the first things you want to look for, is say, will it work outdoors, and see if the company claims, says right up front, yes, it will work outdoors. And then it still doesn't guarantee it will, but but you're better off than if they don't mention it all. If they don't mention it at all, there's a good chance it won't work outside. But you can always go out and then search the internet and find people say, because people are going to be saying, does this sensor work outdoors? And then you get people discussing that. So that's one thing if you're looking for a sensor. What was the other thing I just had? And then if you're going to use it with ROS, one of the first things you want to do is you want to type in the name of the sensor and say ROS driver. And it turns out the camera he's looking at does have a ROS driver available for it. You know, multiple links popped up, but I think they're all pointing back to the same package. But it looks like, yeah, you could plug that right in and run it. And then the range on it, because this type of camera that he's looking at said it had a range of 300 millimeters to 8,000 millimeters. So I guess that's what, a third of a meter to 8 meters. And depending on what you're doing with it, that may be completely adequate. He said one of his things, you want to look at the windrows when he does hay. So you just got this mound of hay out in front of you. So, you know, that might be what, 2 meters away or something. So that it seems like it would work for that. You could see the contour of the ground and then be able to follow the hay with that. And I can't remember. It's industrial enough that, the other thing you want to look at, it says you can get IP67 rating, or there's a lower rating. And I don't know if that's different amount of money you got to spend to get that, but that's just something else. You know, looking ahead, it's good to get, especially an expensive sensor. It's better if it's sealed to the world, so you don't have to worry about it raining out and all that kind of stuff. So that'd be another thing to consider if you're looking at these things. Now, as far as that OAK-D sensor, one thing that I haven't played with mine yet, but they keep saying that it's OpenCV AI. They keep pushing the AI part of it, and it'd be nice if you don't have to go down the AI path just to get an image or make it do something. But maybe, you know, they're trying to say that everything now requires AI, no matter what you're doing. You know, something to answer your phone probably requires AI to, you know, for an answering machine or whatever. But so it does seem like there's enough people using that, and, you know, they've sold thousands and thousands of those things, and they seem to have, you know, a good community behind it. So yeah, that probably would work. But again, it's one of those cases where, you know, type in what you're trying to do and type in the name of that sensor and see if people are talking about, 'cause other people are going to say, will it work for this? Will it work for that? And other people saying, here's a project we did, our university project, or a guy in his basement did a project, you know, maybe mowing his yard or whatever. And you can get lots of feedback on, you know, if the sensor is popular enough, there's going to be a lot of people talking about it. So that's a good approach there.
Yeah, I'm still trying to futz with doing an AB line. So I've never gotten to the camera, but I just put a link to, you know, their tutorials, which, yeah, I mean, I think some of that AI stuff is, the valuations for companies who are supposedly an AI company are 200x their earnings. So everybody wants to be an AI company. Their tutorials are not necessarily, well, I think they're decent tutorials based on listening to some of their webinars and different things. So they seem to be a good group of people from my perspective.
Yeah, I also have one of those OAK-D cameras, and I got the 3D version, so it's got the stereo camera and then another camera on it. And it did seem like the list of things you could do with it, where they talk about segmentation, where, you know, you point it out in front of you, and it can basically tell you where the ground is, and if there's an object there, you know, you can use it for that type of thing. Or you can drive around, if there's a tree in front of you, you know, theoretically you can identify, you know, lots of stuff like that. And probably you can do visual odometry. You know, there's probably lots of things you can do with this. I just haven't bothered to take mine out of the box and try it. So that might be, and it's a lot cheaper than $1,600 too. So if you buy it in the case and then put some kind of like a cover over the top of it to protect, you know, if it does rain, so you don't get water directly on it, and that might work. That might be a good thing to put on a vehicle.
Yeah, and the deal is, I think they've got another iteration of their cameras. So is part of the reason for bringing it up. So there's the next generation of their cameras are probably going to be better than the ones that we bought the last time that haven't used. So, and I seem to recall they had fixed focal length and autofocus ones, and the fixed focal length, I guess, are better for robotic high vibration areas. So it's not constantly trying to autofocus.
I hadn't even thought of that. I can see that if you're driving around and it keeps seeing different objects, it tries to autofocus. That might screw everything up, but it hadn't occurred to me the vibration is going to cause it to constantly be trying to refocus. In fact, it's just confused then at that point.
Yeah, they in the second go round, they have two versions, one that's fixed focal length and one that's which they claim is better for robotics because of that. But anyway, good group of guys from all I can tell. Here's the blurb on that. I don't know if that'll go into the chat or not. I don't know if you can put an image. No, you can't put an image in the chat.
You can just share your screen, and that way it'll be at least captured that way.
Yeah, this is where they say that. On one of their updates.
Do you know the ones that we got? Did it have the autofocus? Or
I'm embarrassed to say I haven't a clue. Because
yeah, I don't either. It hadn't even occurred to me that maybe it would have that. I know even cell phones seem to have, some of them has autofocus, and in fact, this camera I'm using right here, it's got some kind of autofocus built in, and I don't know how it works. I don't know if it's a motorized thing or I don't know. I don't know how it works.
So anyway, so what else is going on? Yeah, I'm still fighting with updating my Teensy and doing that remotely, and yeah, still making slow progress and hating it, and but still plugging away. And I found another meetup that is ROS related and signed up for it and haven't attended. Let me see if I can show you that. Find let's see, do I have that on this machine? How would I get to that? Yeah, I think I can get to that. That would be in my Proton Mail. Bear with me. Yeah, this is an old one, but it's ROS2 autonomous platforms through this platform called Meetup. I mean, this happens to be the December 19th, but it's every Sunday.
So they're online meetings, or is it a local meetup?
It's an online deal. I haven't been to one yet, but I signed up for it. It appeared to be 4 or 5 people. And I keep meaning to, but it's a Sunday afternoon and I tend not to. Well, I just miss it. But you can see Sunday at 1:30. But that's the platform that they use, is this Meetup.
So if you go to meetup.com and search for ROS2 autonomous platforms, you think it'll show up?
Yeah, that would be my guess. Yeah, meetup.com. There you go. 8 attendees, probably early 7 because one of them is me.
There's a way you can post a link to that page to get directly to that. And then I will be able to get directly to that.
Come on. How do I get back to chat?
Yeah, you may have to stop sharing to get back to see that stuff. Oh, it just showed up.
Did it come through?
Yes, it did. So have you looked at it enough to see what their goal is, what they're trying to do?
I mean, it focused on ROS2, it seemed like, and they, in general, and they also mentioned then Musher.io. Seemed like they had 2 or 3 different things. One of them was this Musher.io, but it mentioned ROS2 NavStack as well. So it looked like great stuff.
This might be the same group that's connected with that Homebrew Robotics in California, where they keep saying, "Oh, Sunday we got this meetup on Sunday." So it might be the same people that are doing that. And if so, then I'm guessing these people are quite versed at what they're doing.
I just clicked on the profile for the organizer. Happens to be apparently in Houston, Texas. First name Chaz.
Yeah, that sounds like the same group that is associated. So he's on the Tuesday night Homebrew Robotics things, and then occasionally in the Homebrew Robotics email list, they're saying, "Oh, this Sunday meetup they've got for this." So it comes up. I've just never checked into it. That's good to know.
So another, I don't know if you can tell where the other folks are physically located.
You may have to actually click on a name and then go to their profile. It may tell you, but it being an online thing, it doesn't really matter where they are. So
yeah, I was just curious if they were the home brew guys you said were in California? Or,
Yeah. Well, Camp P, right there on the screen, one of the members of that thing you're looking at, he's one of the head people in homebrew robotics, except he now lives in Florida. So he's running these meetings from Florida with the guys that are still in Silicon Valley. So again, this online stuff really opens up lots of possibilities in the world. You don't have to actually be by the smart people now, because the smart people can be anywhere in the world.
cool. Let's see, what else was I gonna, there was something I wanted to ask you, dag nabbit. I should write this stuff down. I was, I bet if I pulled up my to-do list, if you bear with me a second, because I think I'll find it if I look at my to-do list.
I was always going to make notes during the week, and I forgot to do that. So I can't think of anything else that I've either been doing or thinking about doing.
Well, I was updating my action item list or my milestone plan, and I was trying to get consolidated, and I've got like task lists written down 3 different places, which is like, I need a task list to consolidate my task list, which is really frustrating. I'm getting there. Mine. Nah, I'm not going to be able to find it. December 4th, maybe that's the one. No. Oh man, how frustrating is that? I have one more place to check. And it's yeah, so um, This is in lawn tractor automation. I've got a milestone plan, and it's got a number of different tabs. One of those is one of my Cub Cadets. I actually have two, one in Pennsylvania and one in Texas, which is two different model numbers. This particular model in Pennsylvania has got we've discovered a fuel injected engine. I'm chuckling because it was a rather poor way that I found that out. So I had completed using Jeff's angle and radius detecting software and learning the Arduino command line interface in order to program the Teensys. And I'm on this step to update the low-level steering control. And then the next step would be to test drive that. And I'm trying to remember what I wanted to ask you about. Maybe it was about the LORA stuff. You had used, you've got experience at using LORA, right, for your communication for some of your stuff to do e-stop with?
I have made it work, yes.
And did you get that through Adafruit? Did you buy the Adafruit boards for that?
Yes, I did.
That may have been it, but that might not. So that was one of the things that was on my to-do list. But I'm not sure that was what I wanted to bring up. But anyway, that's where
You know, Bob was also looking at those radios, and he bought something that's, I think, supposed to plug into a Raspberry Pi. So it's got the radio and then a little OLED display on it. And then he, at one end, he wanted to hook it up to his Teensys as opposed to a Raspberry Pi. But it's basically just the display and the radio are two totally separate things, just soldered on the same board. So, you know, to connect that to something like a Teensy, it's just a matter of running the jumpers to the right, jumper wires to the right pins, I think, is all it's going to take to get that to work, doing it that way. And I started off, I bought one that was called I think it was called an M0 LORA board. So it was basically, it's like an Arduino that has some kind of ARM processor on it, and then it's got the radio module soldered down to it. And it seemed like a good way to go, except that whenever Adafruit does things, they think, oh, let's add a charging connector and something else to the board. So they take up, you know, like four to 6 pins on the board, so you don't have as many IO pins left over. And I've got one of those in my transmitter box right now, but I've used up all the IO pins, so I wanted to add some more switches and push buttons to it, and it didn't have enough pins to do that. And then at the other end, I was going to use that same board in the robot, but then I decided I wanted the CAN interface because of the whole story about I was trying to emulate something from a long time ago, and that board, that particular ARM processor will not do CAN, so I ended up buying a Teensy 3.2 to Feather adapter board from Adafruit. So I've got 3 boards stacked up. So it's got the Teensy, it's got the adapter board, and then it's got that original. It's got one of their other radio boards that does not have a processor on it. So I got 3 boards stacked up to do that, and that got to be somewhat of a problem, mainly because I wasn't smart enough to. I think I soldered. Which one was it? I think it's that one. I soldered the Teensy down to the adapter board, and now I can't get to the back of it, you know, because they got lots of extra pins on the back if you want it. So I shouldn't have done that. The rule of thumb is don't ever solder a Teensy 3.2 down to a board, because you can never get to the back of it again. So the problem was there. I guess that for what I'm doing, that works out just fine. If I needed more IO pins on the robot, that would work. And the only reason I went to the Teensy on the robot is because I couldn't get the that original board from Adafruit to do CAN, was the only reason I did that. So I was thinking if I redo my transmitter, I was going to put on either a Teensy 3.2 or a Teensy 3.5, which would give me the 3.2 gives me more IO pins than the original Adafruit board, and a Teensy 3.5 gives me way a lot more pins to do that. And then you can also buy just a little square module that's rather than being the feather format, which is meant to plug into their boards. You know, if you got a board that looks like this, you know, it basically this is the feather format. So it's got you know, just the dual inline package on it. I don't have one of those handy, but it's basically just a processor and a radio soldered down to it. So you can get it that way. So it's all connected together for about $35 or something is what they want for that. And if you're not going to put a lot of extra stuff, because right now I was able to get 2 joysticks, so that's 4 analog channels, and I've got like 2 or 3 switches on there, and that stuff goes through. You know, if I flip the switch, that shows up on the robot, so I can do something with it. But I got down to the point I wanted to add some more push buttons, and I basically just was out of IO pins to hook anything up to. So anyway, back to my point, if I go to say, if I redo the transmitter and put the remote control unit, if I redo that, I'd probably put in like a Teensy 3.2 or a Teensy 3.5, and then buy the little, just the radio on a board. So I don't need the fancy big format. It's just a little square one, which was mine right here. I don't know what I did with it. That way you just connect the wires from that to whatever processor you're using, and it should work. And that would give me plenty of IO on the transmit side. And the other thing is, since that's a bidirectional interface, if you wanted to, you could send data back and then put, say, a bunch of LEDs on your remote control box, or you could even put like that thing that Bob got the OLED display. You know, you could actually put, you know, put out text messages or something right on your remote control too. So that's another option you could do at that point.
Yeah, I got waylaid a little bit by looking at that daggone Opto 22 relay thing, and I'm like, stop! I'm not focusing on what I need to focus on, because I'm like, I don't need relays at the moment. I need to get this low-level controller updated and get the Arduino CLI done. So yeah, like squirrel. Focus.
So yes, I've made those radios work, and I do have a functioning remote control system. And Bob wanted to go down that path, so he's bought some parts, and I don't know how far he's gotten with his. And it, in general, it seems to work. And the fact that it's a two-way communication, you know, just by default, the protocol they have is two-way communication, so you can verify if the messages are going through or not. And I made the mistake. I made the remote control end the master, and then the robot is the slave end. And what I need to do is swap those two, and that's just a matter of changing the software and moving it around a little bit, because otherwise, if my remote control, I turn it on and it says, send this message to the robot and wait for a response to come back. If it doesn't get a response, it just times out and it can't do anything about it. But if I had it so the robot was the master, so as soon as it turns on, it's saying, hey, remote control, send me some data. And if it doesn't get anything back, then that's a timeout, so it can shut itself down. So it's just a matter of that was one thing I need to add to it. Someday I need to swap those two ends around. And it's really the same software running on both ends. It's just slightly different, you know, who's in charge and who's not. So that's something else that should be done.
Do you remember what the voltage was on that, just out of curiosity?
The radio? I think they're the 3.3 volt stuff. And that's why if you hook it up to, you know, basically any of the ARM processors, they're all 3.3 volts.
Well, I think that's all I got today.
And I can't really think of anything else since I didn't make up my list. I should make up a to-do list that says create my notes like you do.
Well, I'm terrible about staying focused. So like, what am I supposed to be working on? So I'm going to be back at updating and testing the low-level steering controller once again. And we have a snowstorm coming, so it'll be in the garage, not out in the yard. But you already have snow on the ground, so.
Yeah, it just kind of comes in bursts, and it's going to be cold enough for a while that it's not going to go away. So it's just something I'll put up with.
Yeah, -20, is that what you said? That's very cold.
And it looks like it'll only be that cold one day, and hopefully, and usually it'll do that in the middle of the night, but I think it says like 4 o'clock in the afternoon is what it's supposed to hit the low point tomorrow.
Yeah, you'll get a chuckle out of my cow guy in Texas. You know, he has to go wrap pipes when it gets below 32 and like worry about the cows when it gets below 32, which it's doing a little bit near Houston, and that's a big deal for them. So yeah, see, I see the smirk. So yeah, that's a big deal. If it would stay that way for a day, that would be like catastrophic. I mean, so they'd be closing schools.
Yep.
We sliding off the roads and all that. And then the next day, everybody's yard would have water fountains in them because the sprinkler systems would have frozen and then burst and unfrozen and be shooting up in the air. Anyway, it's all your frame of reference.
That's true.
Anyway,